Alright, well, sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and do it the right way. We are going to take off the exhaust system, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to take it off from here because this is the diesel. Maybe a little penetrating oil here and a deep socket, and we're going to spin this off. We'll take off these brackets and we are going to remove this exhaust system. Okay, I sprayed it with penetrating oil. This is a deep socket number 13 mils. Yeah, it comes off very nicely. That's the nice thing about Mercedes. They're really well designed. Things don't break that much, and when they do break, things come off the way they should and they go back on the way they should. It's a really good car. Next, we're going to take off these two nuts. 12 millimeter over here. Very nice. They just come right off. Excellent. I'll make sure to save these in a bag and I'm going to label them. This is what that piece looks like when it comes off. I put the nuts back on. These are copper nuts. Just put that in my bin. Next thing is going to be the cross member. So I'm sure you'll remember this cross member. This has 4 bolts. We had this off yesterday. These are T45s. I didn't have the torque spec for them. I just made them nice and tight. They'll come off easily. Right over here. And then we'll take this cross member off and put it to the side. And that should be good. Surprisingly not difficult to take off this exhaust system. Okay, now the cross member is off yet again. And so that just leaves 4 rubber mounts that we have to pull off on the back of the car, and then this whole thing will come down. So I'll put a jack here with some wood just to kind of hold the weight of this, and we'll take off the rubber mounts. Okay. I have this jack just there to support the weight. Now I'm going to go in the back and release 4 rubber mounts. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so here is one of the rubber mounts right here. This is on the left side of the car, just at the level of the rear wheel. So I'll just try to remove it. Let's see if I can show it. I bet if I move my light I can. There. So there's the rubber mount. And all I really need to do is just get this off. It may need some penetrating oil, maybe a little pry bar, but it shouldn't be too difficult. I'm already making some progress on it. See this? There, look, got it off. And of course, if any of these rubber donuts are bad, then you just replace them. But that's one. Now we're going to go do the one on the other side by the other rear wheel. Alright, so here we are at the other rear wheel. And this is, once again, the rubber donut. And we're just going to do the same thing, but I'll need some hands to do that, so you'll have to excuse me if I come off of the camera to really do the majority of the work. And then I'll be back on. Okay, now it's time for the final 2. Here we are behind the tailpipe. This is on the right side of the car. I'll remove this one, and then there's one on the left side also. And then at that point, this whole thing should come right off. Okay, so now with those removed, take a look at this. I've dropped down the jack, and everything is just nice. And we're going to now just gently slide this out and remove it out the rear of the car. Okay, and so now here is the exhaust system just laying here. Have to say once again, for 200,000 miles, it's like it's brand new. There's not the slightest thing wrong with it. I'm going to go ahead and just carefully store this in the garage. And This was so easy that really I would just recommend doing it this way in the first place. I probably struggled too much to try to do those flex discs while this thing was still in. And so now, with that out of the way, man, we have a clear shot for this job. I don't know why I didn't do this in the first place. This is absolutely the correct way to do it. I was very silly to have been stubborn and not do it this way in the first place. So, guess what, fans? You learned from me. I'll take off this shield, the whole thing will be exposed, and I will be able to remove that entire drive shaft. Now this is what I'm talking about. Everything with just absolute clear exposure, front to back. We are now totally ready to do just what we have to do here and remove this entire drive shaft and be able to replace this new center bearing, which definitely is shot. Okay, so once again we're going to put the jack with a piece of wood right under the transmission pan. I'm going to support the weight of the transmission while I once again remove the transmission mount, the cross brace, and then this cross brace. We're going to put them all to the side, fully exposing the drive shaft, and then supporting the weight of the transmission with the jack. Okay, so now the transmission, the weight of the transmission is being held by the jack, a little block of wood. The transmission mount is out, the transmission cross brace is out, and this other drive shaft cross brace is out. The drive shaft is now really completely exposed. The next thing I'm going to do is use a white paint marker, and I'm going to very carefully mark the location of the drive shaft at all the different joints so that when it comes off, I'll know exactly how to put it back on and balance it correctly. And then we're going to start taking off once again all these new bolts that we had just put on, but that's okay, you know, it's an exercise. And the whole drive shaft will come off, and I'll finally be able to fix and replace the intermediate ball bearing assembly. Okay, once again, all the bolts are out. I just leave this one in so that I can continue to twist it. I'm going to clean this off and extend my marks so that I know exactly where this goes for the purpose of balancing. Okay, so now we're back at the differential, the rear flex disc. I marked it marked over here. Remove all the nuts and bolts, and then the final step is going to be to remove the intermediate bearing bracket, and then the whole drive shaft is going to come out. Okay, finally we're going to take out this bolt and this bolt. Notice how I've marked things, and then the whole drive shaft should be able to come out. Just be careful it kind of doesn't fall on your head. Okay, this is our prize. We got the entire drive shaft off with our nice new flex discs. This is the front part of the shaft, then the bearing, intermediate bearing assembly, the rear part of the shaft. Everything's marked. Now what I will do is very carefully separate the drive shaft. I have my markings, and we're gonna have to pull off that bearing. Okay, the drive shaft is separated. This is a rubber boot. This is going to be replaced. This will be cleaned up, and now what we're going to do is replace this part, which is from the rear shaft. I'm going to take off this, which shouldn't be loose like this, and we'll just take this off and then press out the bearing. Okay, so I'm going to use a 3-jaw puller from Harbor Freight and try to just get this outer part off, and then we'll go after the bearing. Okay, so now that we have this pressed off, the only thing that's left is this bearing, which after 200,000 miles really should go. We're going to use the 3-arm puller and get this off. Okay, so I have an 8-inch 3-jaw puller on this. You can see how it's hooked right underneath here. Okay, and we're gonna put on a 17mm ratchet. I'm gonna put on my gloves, put the camera down, and just slowly get this off. There she is. Yeah. Great. So that's it. It's off. We'll clean that up. We'll get the new parts. We'll put them on. Here's our prizes. These things are done. We'll get a nice new one after 200,000 miles service. I think it deserves that. Okay, well, we got the new parts. Very pleased about this. I got a new ball bearing. That's, of course, the old one. This is the new one. This is the new intermediate rubber boot bearing, whatever they call that. And then finally I got a new little dust cap. So now what we're going to do is put this on. We're going to take this, we're going to put this on like this, and I'm going to use this special tool, which is nothing but a 1¼ inch pipe from Home Depot, and we are going to gently tap this on. Okay, so for this part we are going to first put this on. We are going to use our special tool, this homemade drift. Not exactly homemade, it's more store-bought. Your favorite BFH. Make sure that you're on the metal part, not the rubber. And we're going to try to hammer this down gently. So it's going. We're just going to keep going with that, and then when it's done, I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, that did it. It's on. So, just in case you were wondering, the tool, the official Mercedes tool that just did what I did, costs about $120, and it's basically a hollow pipe. I think I paid $4.50 for this, so not a bad deal. Alright. Okay, so now we're going to grease this again with some nice NLGI2 synthetic grease. And don't be shy, just gloop it up. And we're going to grease this spline very nicely all the way around. I'll do the outside, then I'll do the inside of the other one, and then we'll be ready to put this thing together. I am also going to grease the inside here, and then we'll put the two halves together. Some nice grease here. Kind of reminds me of like Duncan Hines frosting, but doesn't taste quite as good. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and put on the new cap. This is the old one, which is kind of dried out. We'll get the new one, and that'll snap right on here. Okay, the next step is to get this rubber bearing sleeve in. Now, it goes in this direction where this fat end is pointing away, so it goes in this orientation, and now I just have to kind of work that rubber on there. I don't have any kind of fancy tool, but I think that I can just do this with fingers and being really careful. Okay, here's the next special Mercedes tool. A piece of 2-inch pipe. Took some electrical tape so that this doesn't scuff anything up. And look at that. It just fits right over that, and now we can tap it. All right, well, it's on, and it looks really good too. I have to say, it looks really good. So, time to put these two pieces back together. Okay, so we slipped the two pieces back together. There's the new boot. Here's my line, which comes to here, but also it's marked. You see how there's two marks here that are in the metal, and they have to align with this one mark that's also in the metal. Those are factory alignments, so even if you screw up here, you're gonna be good. But we got it. That's perfect. Now all that's necessary is to put this whole unit back up underneath the car, get it hooked up. Okay, so now don't forget to grease this part. We're going to grease the corresponding part on the transmission, and then we're going to go to the other end and grease that part as well. Okay, so here we are by the transmission. Right here is where my white line is, and that is what's going to line up. And I just want to make sure that this part is greased. Take a little grease, come like this, get all that greased. Now we're going to do the same thing on the rear differential, and then we can put this in. Okay, so we got the drive shaft back on. These bolts get tightened to 25 Newton meters, and then of course up here, these guys to 60. And now as we turn backwards towards the rear differential, those guys get torqued to 60. So that's what we're going to do next. I'll do it in a star pattern, and be sure to follow the rules about where to put the washers. You put the washers on the flex disc itself, but not on the metal part of the drive shaft. Okay, we're all torqued. These are torqued down to 60. I got the transmission mount back on. 50, 50. The ones under here are 28. These big guys over here are 50. I took the jack down, so now the transmission is holding its own weight. Everything on the drive shaft is in. And I'm going to finish this up now by putting back this cross brace. 23 Newton meters on these. Okay, so now we got the whole drive shaft back on, torqued. I got the heat shields back on, transmission, all the different brackets. Everything is good. Now all I need to do is put on the exhaust, and then this car is going to be ready for its next 200,000 miles. Okay, we're ready to reinstall the exhaust. So I looked at the exhaust, and my exhaust pipes were not quite right. So this joint was all cockeyed. So I took it off and I redid it and retorqued it. I had all kinds of stuff that was probably tar on here. I ground that off. That was driving me crazy. And then this bar was all bent and twisted, and that's probably why this was all messed up. So once this was straightened, I straightened this bar and put that back on. So now I basically have a brand new, nice, beautiful exhaust, and now I'm going to put this back under the car and get it back on. Okay, so I have the exhaust mostly in the right spot, and now what I'm just going to do is kind of rotate it in, and we're going to start by getting these hangers, these hanger things, into the rubber mounts, which would be right here, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so to get this to go, what I did is I just temporarily took off this brace that I had straightened. That just allowed me to get these two hooks on. Now the next one I'll have to get these hooks on, but right where that paint can is now, I'm going to replace that with a jack and support the weight, make this whole thing level. Then I should be able to hook everything in. Okay, so I got the jack holding this up, and now I'll try to go in and put on those other two rubber mountings. Alright, so you can see this is the peg, and it goes right into this rubber mounting. We'll do this one, we'll do the one on the other side. Okay, so we got this one in, and as I bring the light over, we've got this one in also. Now we're going to go up to the front and hook up the front ring connector. Okay, we're going to take this connector and we're going to put it right there, hook it up, 20 Newton meters. Alright, we're going to put this thing back and then these go down and get torqued to 20 Newton meters. Okay, and the final step was to get this straightened bar back on, and then I torqued these also to 20 Newton meters. So, the whole exhaust system is back on. It looks so much better than it did. I got off all that junk that was on there. This has been straightened. It's now finally aligned correctly. It was a good thing I did this. You get a lot of secondary advantages to taking the car apart, inspecting it, and then refurbishing it back to spec. Time to reinstall this cross brace. This will go down to 23 Newton meters. And this goes right over here with the 4 bolts. Alright, so that brace is back on, and that means that the whole exhaust system is now on and finally cleaned up and put in properly. Everything just right. Found problems that I never even knew had existed.